Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Always back with another IONIC tutorial with Capacitor. So in this video, we are going to create an application from scratch. So that's going to be a camera application. I'm just mirroring my iPad right on the screen, and you can see we've got three tabs. I just left it there, tab 2, tab 3, don't do anything. But here we have a button, take a picture. I'm going to tap on this one. It's going to open up a camera. I can use the front facing camera or the back camera. I'm gonna take a picture. Once I take the picture, I can do editing here, a basic editing like crop, and then I can tap on this use photo. Once I do that, it's going to take that photo and store that as an image into my photo library. Now this is a cross-platform application. It will run on Android and iPhone, so it's like a from scratch building this application in this 30-minute video. If you like this video, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Also check out my JavaScript course, Angular course, and I have a full IONIC course on Udemy as well. I'll drop a link of those courses in the description. Also check out my brother's course Umair, which is a full stack course, Loopback as a backend and Angular as a frontend. Okay, so let's get started with this tutorial. Now, IONIC framework provides this native API as well, which is based on Cordova. So Cordova is like a native bridge between your web app running in the browser of a mobile to accessing a native device feature like GPS or camera. I'm going to show you how you can integrate Capacitor with IONIC. We're going to click on getting started, and we're going to start by installing Capacitor, also creating an IONIC project. Now there are key points that we need to talk about. IONIC is going to be used as a UI library. So here if I click on components, here you can see we got all the mobile responsive components like grid, infinite scroll, input, item. So we use these UI components from IONIC framework. We will use Capacitor to access device hardware like camera or GPS. So let's get started by creating a new IONIC project and integrate Capacitor with that. So for that, I'm going to open terminal. Let's me just zoom in. And now, first of all, what you need to do is install Capacitor and IONIC CLI. So it's pretty simple. All you gotta do is go to guides, and here we got installation. How do we install CLI? Now this is the command that you need to run. If you're on a Windows, you can simply run npm install -g ionic, and if you're on a Mac, you gotta add sudo. So I'm gonna type here npm install -g ionic, and I've got to type the password because I'm installing IONIC as a global package. Now this is going to take a few minutes depending on your internet connection and your computer speed. So as you can see, I've got this IONIC 5.4.5 installed. The next thing we need to install is Capacitor. So I like to show you guys documentation, because by looking at the documentation, you will know that where I'm getting the knowledge from, and you can go and explore more about the specific technology. So here we got this introduction and installation, and I'm going to click on installation and go to here. So we need to install Capacitor and Capacitor CLI, but we're not going to install this globally. We're going to add this Capacitor into this existing IONIC application. So I'm going to type IONIC start, which will create an application for us. But first I'm going to cancel out. I'm just going to go to a folder where I could delete this project later on. And I'm going to do cd, actually make a directory mkdir, and I'm going to just say test IONIC, or we can name it IONIC Capacitor. Okay, now I'm going to create a new project. So IONIC start would be a command. We can name our project as, whatever the name that you want to do. But wait a second, this will create a Cordova project for us. We don't want to create a Cordova project because we don't want to use anything related to Cordova. So what you need to do is IONIC start space -- Capacitor. Okay, now this time it's going to create a capacitor project for us using IONIC UI library. So I'll just say camera app, and we're going to use a framework, so we can use Angular or React. Well, I'll use Angular, and here is our starter templates that you can choose from. So I will choose tabs, which is like, a boilerplate code from IONIC. And here you can see what it's doing. It's saying IONIC integration enable capacitor. So it's running commands for us. Here's the command. You could do it manually, and it says quiet camera IONIC starter package, and it installed capacitor core as well. And then it ran a command capacitor init camera, and it's still installing stuff. Once our project is ready, I'm going to open this in our IDE. Now, usually people use a VS Code, which is a very famous IDE, free, open source. It's great, but I won't use this because I will use a better IDE than VS Code, which is WebStorm by JetBrains. I'll use PyCharm instead of WebStorm. It's kind of same thing. So what we need to do is open PyCharm. It's up to you what IDE you want to use. I'm going to use the professional version PyCharm. I'm going to open the project. So I created that project on desktop, so camera, and that's it. Now I'm going to talk about key differences between IONIC native versus capacitor. Now, when you create your IONIC project with Cordova, it's more like a website running in a mobile app. With Capacitor, it's actually going to generate a native project, which means that if you want to create a functionality in a native code, you could do that as well, because it will be a native project, and you can open that native project on Android Studio for Android, and iOS would be opening in Xcode, and you can start coding right in those IDEs. All the UI will be generated from IONIC. You won't be able to modify that, but you will be able to modify Swift code for capacitor plugins or Java code for Android plugins. Now, it open up the camera app. The first thing what we need to do is look at the project structure and compare it with Cordova. So here you can see we don't have any config.xml file, which is the configuration file for Cordova project. Instead, we have this capacitor.config, and here we can do some configuration here. It's got our app ID, app name, a bundle, and webdir. So webdir is the folder which basically is used for creating an iOS and Android project. Now I'm going to take you back to the documentation, and here is a great guide using with IONIC. So here we created a capacitor project. I used this command instead of just IONIC start, and it's showing me how you can integrate this with an existing IONIC project. But here the same command that it ran automatically, here is that IONIC integration enable capacitor, and then you can manually use this npx utility and use the cap init if you want to just generate a capacitor project instead of IONIC. But it's better to use IONIC UI because capacitor doesn't have a much UI component. Now that's pretty much it is. Now the next thing we need to do is generate our iOS platform and Android platform within our project. Now you could do that by using a command IONIC capacitor add iOS. Now I'm on a Mac because that's the reason why I can use this. Now it throws an error. It says capacitor could not find the web asset directory. Okay, that's okay, because we need to use this command IONIC build first, and this will build our project, and you will see a www folder will be generated for us. Let me take you back to the documentation. Now here is a guide. If you have existing Cordova application, how do you move to capacitor from Cordova? and here's some guide. I'll create a separate video how you can do it. It's more like just, you know, removing those dependency, installing capacitor specific dependency, and modifying your code to use the capacitor specific code, not the Cordova one. Not very complicated, but if you read this guide, you will get to know what to do. So this video is going to be capacitor with IONIC. We have generated this www folder, should be here. That's it. Now I can use this IONIC capacitor add iOS. Now you might wondering, where this command came from? Well, let me take you back to the documentation, and here we got some commands within capacitor. For example, if I go to iOS specific guide, here it says npx cap add iOS. Now this capacitor project is a standalone project. You don't need to use IONIC library. You could use the UI bootstrap library for mobile and use capacitor for accessing a native device hardware. It's up to you. But when we're using capacitor with IONIC, it's better to use IONIC specific CLI commands. So I'm going to take you to IONIC documentation and click on CLI. And in this CLI, you can see we have these commands. We used to have like Cordova command, we still do, but we also have addition of capacitor commands. So if I click on this capacitor, it's telling me IONIC capacitor add platform. It can be iOS and Android, and also Electron project as well. You're going to need to use another command, which is capacitor sync. Now what this will do, it will generate our www folder from our source code, and then it will install all the plugins that we will use to access the hardware. Now our iOS platform has been added. Now here's a folder. This is a native project. Okay, you can see we got pods installed. We got app folder, which has this app delegate, which is like a configuration or entry point for that. We got this info plist. You could do modification here as well. Now I'm going to go and use this IONIC capacitor serve command. Well, there's no IONIC capacitor serve command. You could use IONIC serve command, and if you have any capacitor plugins installed, you would be able to use those in the browser, because it generates a progressive web app. Unless instead of like a Cordova specific thing, because when you run Cordova, it will throw an error most of the time. Open the developer tools, expand this, and you can visualize your app in iPhone 6, 7, 8, or Android as well. Now here's our code. We got tabs. We got this UI page. Now our project is running in a browser. What I need to do is to get rid of that page. So we're gonna go to app component. Here we got the router outlet, which is like a entry point and navigation for that. Here we got tabs, and now we got 3 tabs here. That's all good. So the first tab will have that HTML, which we need to get rid of. So I'm just gonna get rid of here. So save the file, and then you're gonna see that project will be compiled again. Now we got an empty tab, tab 1, tab 2. Now capacitor is running. I'm gonna show you how you can install capacitor specific thing. Now we got this plugin here called Camera, which will help us to access the camera. So it says Camera API allows a user to pick a photo from their phone, album, or take a picture. That's all right. Now we got some configuration to do. So for the iOS, you need to have this kind of thing there. So what I'm going to do first, install the plugin and then access the plugin in browser. Then we will run that in an emulator or a real device. So here's an example code. Instead of typing this, I'm just going to copy this code, and I'm going to go to tabs and going to go to tabs.page. In the constructor function, I'm just going to paste that. I'm going to cut this import, put it right on the top. Also cut this line of code, put it right on the top. Okay, now we got these plugins getting imported from Capacitor core, and also we're creating this const variable camera plugins, and then we're accessing it here. Now I would like to call this function when I click on one of the tab. So we're gonna go to tab.html, and here it says I'm gonna use icon as camera. I'm not sure if the camera icon exists, so let's verify that. Nope, it doesn't exist. So I'm gonna go back and we'll take a look at IONIC cons. So IONIC cons, open this website, and here you will see all the icons. So I'm gonna use the camera. Here you go. So that's the camera there. I copied it. Now icon, camera. It's all good. It should have worked. There's an arrow in the tabs. Okay, so we got this thing here. Okay, we actually missing one curly brace. Should be compiled now. We got the app, now we got the icon there. So I'm just gonna change the name there to make it look like, it's actually a camera. So we'll change this tab 1 to take picture. I had a click event on this button, so that would be take picture. Let's go to that function, and here I'm going to import a few other things to be able to run this camera in the browser. Right now we're importing plugins and camera results. We're going to need a couple more things here, so I'm just going to paste that line of code. Let's get rid of that, and I'm going to paste it. So what we're importing here, so we got plugins, we got a camera result type, and a camera source. For the running the camera in the browser, we're gonna have to use DOM sanitizer and save resource URL. Add a photo property to a tabs page, so I'm gonna type photo, and this type would be save resource URL. In the constructor, I'm going to add sanitizer, and that would be a type of DOM sanitizer. Okay, so we got all the dependency injection done to run the camera in the browser. So in the take picture functions, we are accessing this camera plugin from here. We're calling a function get photo, and here's the properties. There's auto editing, result types, tell it the source as well. So here's the source property, and then camera source dot camera. Okay. Now, once we take our picture, we need to be able to access that base 64 data from the picture. Use this photo property here, and I'm going to paste the code and I'll explain to you guys. So here we're accessing this dot photo, and then we're saying this dot sanitizer bypass security trust URL, value would be image, and image dot data URL. So once we take a picture, it's going to save that here, this dot photo. Now I'm going to use a console.log, and I'm going to log this dot photo. Now, once we take a picture, it is going to show us in the console the base 64 data of the picture. Okay, so let me just stop the server, and I'm going to type IONIC serve on the terminal again. I just want to make sure that our server reads all the files that we have modified, and also the plugin, the camera result type and the camera source are actually running. I'm going to go to a browser here, and it's running our application. I'm going to open the web developer tool. I'm going to click on take picture, and here we get an error. It says type camera model dot component on ready is not a function. Now this is because we are running our camera in the browser. Now Capacitor provides this kind of browser-based functionality using PVA elements. We're going to go back and stop the server, and I'm going to install the package npm install @ionic/PVA elements. So you're going to have to install this one. Once you have installed that, you're going to go to main.ts file, and here I would like to paste define custom elements, and I'm going to run this define custom elements right below here. We're running in a window, so I'll do IONIC serve, All right, so let's open up developer tools. I'm going to click on take picture, and there you go. I've got my camera in the browser. If I click on this button, it's going to take the picture, and I'm going to click on this tick mark green button, and there you go. We got this data is basically undefined for some reason. Let's fix this. We're going to go back to the code, and here the result type is set to URI. I'm going to change that to data URL. Let's save it, and let's go back and take another picture. Click on take camera, take a picture, and there you go. We got the base64 data. Now you might want to save the file into your photo library, and that is very simple with Capacitor. Do is use save to gallery and set it to true. Let's save the file. Now we got everything is running. Now it's time for us to actually try our code into actual device. Now I'm going to use IONIC Capacitor sync iOS command. It's going to make sure that it's going to install all the Capacitor plugins into the native project. Here we have iOS folder. All good. So I'm going to use IONIC Capacitor open iOS. And now this command would automatically open Xcode with this project. As you can see, it's really good, easy to open, and you can also use the run command. Now here I've got this device set up wirelessly, so I'm going to use the wireless iPad. Okay, so our app is basically ready to launch on iPad. Now, before I go further, I would like to show you some configuration you might want to do. So here we're going to go to info.plist file, and here we got to pick photos from a library, and there's another one to record video and to record audio and video. So basically it's basically a description which will be appearing when your device is going to ask the user that allowed the camera of a device to be able to use that within your application. So here's a description. I can change that to test camera with capacitor. Okay, and then I'm going to click on this play button, which is going to install. Now there's another error. You're gonna have to make sure that you use this signing for app. We click on this, we go here, we go signing and capabilities. Here I'm going to use my personal team account, and it's just going to create a profile visioning automatically. It says the app identifier cannot be registered to your development. So what we want to do is IONIC, so I'm going to change this to com.oasmusa.ionic capacitor, or let's just say IONIC test 01. I'm going to try again, and it's going to create a profile visioning. That's all good now. I'm going to click on this play button, and it's going to install all the capacitor plugins for me. I'm going to take you here, which is like I'm mirroring my iPad to this screen, and we want to see if the app is getting installed. So far, nope. Here I've got something to type. It's saying code sign want to access Apple developer keychain. I'm going to say always allow. Hopefully the app will be installed. I'm going to go back to Xcode. It says running on iPad. So far it's not. There's a lot of apps that I have, so it might be taking a bit of time wirelessly. We're going to go back to Xcode. And it says installing to OS iPad, so it's still not finished yet. Let's go back to our iPad and wait for it to install, and then we should be able to see that. Maybe I can just keep you guys in this screen and see when it's going to finish, because I'm not connected with my iPad to the Mac directly. I'm just using a wireless connection, and now it's installing wirelessly. That might be taking long. So I'm going to pause the video. Once this is finished, then we unpause and I'll show you it's running. It says running app on iOS iPad. Let me take you to the screen here. And here I can see I've got the camera installed. I'm going to open it up. And there you go. We got that. Now the problem here is that we got the app running, but it's not the latest code. Now, what we need to do to be able to get the latest code is by using this IONIC, Capacitor, or maybe we can do just IONIC build first. I'm going to go to tabs. Here, I'm going to get rid of these tabs as well. Save the file, and I'm going to build it again with one tab. Okay, and I'm going to use IONIC, Capacitor, Sync iOS. Okay, there was a typo probably. There was a typo. Okay, it's updating native dependency. Once that's done, we're gonna go to Xcode and click on this play button again. I'm gonna stop the app, and let's just say the app canceled because the scheme is no longer available. That's all right. Click on this play button, and it's going to install the app again, or maybe it's gonna update it. It says build successful or running on iOS iPad. Still taking a bit of time. Now, the next time when I'm going to make a video, I will make sure that I connect the iPad through a proper lightning cable because it's taking way too long to build it. Okay, so app is installed successfully. I can see the logs in Xcode as well. Let me just make it maximize. Okay, I'm going to tap on take photo. And it's asking me, would you like to access the camera? And here's the description that we wrote: test camera with the capacitor. Okay, let's click OK, and there you go. I've got the camera access. Now you can't see that on the when it's mirroring. Actually, you can. And then I'm going to click on this button here, and now we got this allow editing enabled as well. I'm going to click on use a photo. And now it's asking me, a camera would like to access your photo. I'm going to click on OK. And then it's going to store that image that I took into my photo library. So I'm just going to open photos. And here is a photo that I took using my own application. Let's try one more time. I'm going to open up the camera application. It's actually running. Click on this take photo. Let's take photo here. Okay, and I'm going to use the photo. It's saved automatically. Let's go here. We got 2 photos there now. All right, guys, so I'm actually going to upload this code onto my GitHub account if you're interested in. It's similar as it's very similar to run on Android. All you gotta do is just use this command: capacitor add Android platform, and I use capacitor run Android. That's pretty much it. Is all you need to do is, and then open up your device where you install the app, and it should be running. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Cheers.